Good morning, day 30. And even though I'm in Florida, it's cold. It'll get warmer though. And I'm not going to complain because I know wherever a lot of you all are, it is 0 or sub-zero. So no complaints here. And let me just show you where I am. Sunrise is happening. And I'm gonna walk in a peaceful setting here and hopefully get a few good pictures. All right, so continuing, I'm landing the plane and finishing up the dense mindful book of Deuteronomy. The remindful book is what it should be called, where he is just I think Deuteronomy, I think officially it stands for like the second law. So he's basically recounting, summarizing, and then even adding in some additional smaller, like how to handle things, rules, and anyway. But at the end of it, there is this interesting song. And I think songs for people back in those times are not what we think of as songs. But basically it is, recounting a summary, sort of like what we did yesterday, like the choice of life and death. It's pretty simple, but recounting the story of the Exodus, all of God's promises, taking them into the promised land, and then predicting that once again, the Israelites, in their humanness, will continue to be human and forget. They will get fat and happy. They will worship other gods, and they will be smited once again by the mighty smiter, like from Bruce Almighty. Not to make fun of God, but that is like one of the things that came, sometimes I think in movies. And, but there's a psychological phenomenon that we know now with brain science and psychology that's been coined or talked about as fading effect bias, FAB, which that's actually, it's easy for me to remember because those are my initials, Felicia Ann, and my maiden name is Bishop. So my initials are FAB. So when I learned of this one, it was actually pretty easy for me to remember. I want to show you, look at some windows across there, bouncing the sunlight off, like little glistening. It's very cool. So fading effect bias, what does it mean? Why is it important? And what can we do about it? Well, I don't know. Like some of the things we've been talking about, like having a scroll, writing it down, reading it often, reminding yourself, having like a level of commitment, having, things that represent that, like our wedding ring does for our marriage, that you can anchor to, like to really fight some of these ways that we are naturally wired as humans, which actually from a survival and biological standpoint is not a bad thing. So fading effect bias is the tendency for us to forget negative emotions or minimize them as we get time and distance from an event, like maybe something where something bad happened. And I'll just give a couple of examples of why this is actually a good thing. Well, if you've been through a trauma, and I think most of us have been through something with negative emotions, like if we stayed in it and remembered it always, like that would be hard to function. And you see people that do fall into that trap where it is hard to forget and they can wallow, depression can set in, you have things like PTSD, and even childbirth, as amazing as it is to give birth, like it's painful. And it's important for women to have a fading effect bias towards this, so that we have multiple children. If we remembered only the pain of it, there probably wouldn't be very many, that would not be good for the propagation of the species. And so for those of us, and why is this important when we talk about, when you want to, a lot of what I talk about, you can probably tell, is trying to grow and make some positive changes in your life. Well, if you've gotten some bad habits in place that you're now working on trying to change, you can have a lot of success early on, and it's very exciting and motivated, and you stay on it. But if you don't really go to do the deeper work and even learn some of the brain science and how to put things in place, and you kind of just try what we call the white knuckle approach, got white knuckles this morning, eventually your brain gets tired, and then you'll be in a situation where you get tempted, and you'll go, was it really that bad? Was it? Yeah, maybe I've done all this work and blah, blah, blah. Like, it's really not going to be that bad. And this is the trap that the Israelites kept falling into and would continue to. Like Moses was predicting, like, it's going to happen again. God was predicting it. This is going to happen again. Here's how it's going to play out. And eventually, now in our time, we have the New Testament, and so we kind of know why this was all happening and why it had to go this way. And then Jesus comes and kind of sets the record straight, so to speak, and tells us what really needs to happen. But anyway, they didn't have Jesus. They didn't have the Holy Spirit. They didn't have access to all this. They were just humans really trying in their flesh to be obedient. And when you're faced and your back is up against the wall, well, even we saw earlier, like, it was hard. They wanted to still even go back to slavery, even though they were in a hard season. It wasn't as bad as what they had before, but they forgot. Like, it was familiar. They knew how to do it. Like, this is what we are up against with our survival brains, or our egos. Here, I'll show you the sun rising. There she is. Woohoo. Well, wait a minute. Let me see if I can. Oh, I've zoomed in before, but there we go. There we go. That's kind of cool. Okay. So I'm going to wrap this up because it's a useful thing to just know about your brain, which is why if you are not only diligent about connecting to a why that's deep, that you must make this change and stick with it, why you're committing, writing things down, like all of these things, that this fading effect bias will still creep up. And what can you do about it? What can you put in place? Well, you could have, this song, which is really more like a poem. You could write yourself a letter. You could go, oh yeah, you need to have like a video diary, a journal, where you can really, and it's good to revisit that and remind yourself, oh yeah, it really was that bad. I don't want to do that again. And look at and keep making a record of all of the progress that you've made and how good it really is, which then if you play that forward and keep going in that direction, like keep your eye on the promised land. Don't let yourself get too comfortable. That is sort of the trap that I fell in personally, which is why I'm out here in the 40-degree weather doing this, because I did, I let this happen in my life. I was starting, or I could feel it, and I know these things. I know these psychological terms, and I've learned a lot about brain science, and yet I still have a brain, so I'm still a victim of my own brain. So going to the one who created it and asking for help, to me, sounds like a pretty good idea. I don't know about you and where you are on your faith journey, but I'm not my own creator. So this self-help movement, while there is some good things about it, and it is good to take personal responsibility, totally believe in that. But for me, that includes knowing I'm not God. And I have access to one, and he cares about me that deeply that I can go, and he will even remind me, just like he tried to with the Israelites. Like, I'm telling you here. But all we can do is do our best, and when we get off track, we, go and make amends. And luckily, we don't live in Old Testament times anymore. We have access to Christ and the Holy Spirit and the whole of the Trinity. Man, I need to take some pictures. So I'm going to go. So tell me what you think about fading effect bias, how you've experienced it before, what you can do, what you could personally do about it, reflect on it, and put some things in place like what we've been talking about to help yourself stay on a path of growth and not falling for your brain's temptations to go, well, it's really not that bad. Let's backslide a little, or let's just stay here, or let's, it really wasn't that bad. Let's go do it again. All right. Bye for now.